So one thing I'm going to do real quick actually is see if we can grab like reference track. Where would that? Where would I put my music? Oh, it's here. Yeah. Do I have like an argy track maybe? Ritmo might be good. I'll just drag this in. So I'm going to bring a reference track in just for like structural guidelines.
Cool.
First thing I'm going to do is just put this in warp mode, put it in repitch mode. I'm going to come here and make sure that the first beat actually is at the start. And then I'm just going to detect what the BPM is. Just a little bit faster. 127. And that's just going to be there for like where we're going to build the track around. So I think the first drop's here. There it is. I'm just going to drag all this stuff, open up all this stuff. Just drag it over here to the first drop. We'll just call this like drop 1. Any questions, by the way, just shout out. It's all good. Cool. So that's that. Let's use Splice. The first thing we're going to do is type in like the genre I'm working in. This is more like techno today. And click that. And then once that's like selected as a tag, I can just type in like kick drum. I'll give more techno kicks. That'll work. I'm not too fussy about finding anything perfect. I just want to be like, yeah, that sounds good to me. That's kind of, I'm vibing with that. So I'm going to look at like the oscilloscope, just kind of see what the shape of the kick looks like. We can even compare it to like the reference track and see kind of like what's going on there. So you can see it kind of ends around here. So maybe I'll shorten it down a little bit. Oops. Put it in one-shot mode. There we go. And then key should we go for today?
I like
Let's go with you pick.
F for like let's do F minor.
It's always really strong. Cool. We've got F locked in. Let's put the sub notes in. We'll just go with like a rolling thing for now. Why not? That's too high maybe. Yeah, about 45 hertz. That's what we want to be. Now I already have shaper box built into the template like so it's already doing this. I just need to maybe shape it around the kick drum a bit better like that. If we bring the kick back in, you can see blends in quite nicely. It doesn't interfere with the kick, right? Because if we take the sidechain off, it gets all like weird and mangled, which we don't want.
Oh yeah.
So we want the sidechain to be correct. There's also this little thing here. Can you see my cursor, by the way? Does it come through on Zoom?
Yep.
Perfect. So it's like this little bit of like a click happening here. This is because the waveform is like not at its resting point, not at 0. And then I'm asking it to start a new note, which is then trying to force it back to 0. So it's creating that little click and pop. The way we fix this is just for attack and release. So we'll do that now. I've got Serum 2 here, but I've got like stuff macroed to an Ableton rack just to make my life easier. I'm just going to bring that down. Release. Just smooth out that thing until that click disappears, right?
Okay,
it's kind of gone now. So now the sub is nice and smooth, not producing a click. The next thing I'm going to do is solo the sub, and I'm going to go show SC. It's going to bring like an orange representation of the kick through. This is going to allow me to basically see the oscillation of the sub unaffected, and then the kick as like an overlay. And this is going to allow me to actually change the phase of the sub until I can just kind of get it to align up a little bit. Phase alignment with the sub is like, it's very, very niche. You don't have to do it, but it can gel the kick and the sub together a bit better and just get a bit more power out of the lows. So that kind of lines up, right? I see the problems returned here with the click. I don't know why that is. Let's figure that out again. Okay. Cool. So bring this back together. There we go. Now just like turn the sub on and off and just look at if there's anything happening to the kick, which looks like it's completely intact, which is great. Another little thing I'll point out as well is on the template, the track delays. Do you know how to turn track delays on, by the way?
No, I don't. How do we do
So if you come down here, you click this little thing down here and you go track options. and
Hmm.
it brings up the track delay. And what this does is it allows you just to like move the whole track just back or forward like by a few milliseconds. And the reason we do this, if I reset this back to 0 and we look at this, the sub at the end here is actually going into the transient of the kick. And so if I turn this on
Hmm.
and off, you'll see like this will actually affect the transient of the kick. This is not so bad, but sometimes I've seen it where like the transient just goes like plus 5 dB. And so
Okay.
by moving it back 2 dB like this, same with the bass line, we essentially just introduce a tiny, tiny little gap. See if I can grab it.
Oh, gotcha. So that it allows for more the that click to come through, right?
It's not interfering with the beginning of the kick. And so
Hmm.
the sub's essentially like resetting or like muting before the kick comes in so the kick can just punch through fully. It's a very
Oh, did
minute
not
thing.
know that. That is good to know.
Yeah,
Minus
it's very,
two.
again, it's very niche. Usually it's not a problem, but sometimes I've seen it. When I don't do that, the sub like goes into the kick, and all of a sudden you see on the oscilloscope there's just like a massive spike on the transient, and obviously that's going to affect the compressor and everything like that later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we don't want that to happen. But yeah, the reason why I focus on low end first is the way I think about it is kind of like building a house. You wouldn't start with the walls, the roof. You start with the foundation, the floor, right? And so for me, in a mix, in a track, the low end is the floor. Once you've got the
Mm-hmm.
low end essentially mastered, and essentially what we're doing here is the reason why this is structured as like 4 separate groups is I am going to like essentially master each of these stems and then mix them together.
Okay.
So we've got like big building blocks essentially. So we build a big building block, master it, and then we mix it against each other. And we can use things like sidechain to like make them fit together and stuff, right? But anyway, that is the sub. And with the sub here, we're probably looking like trying to get like minus 16, which we have is good. The kick though is a little bit loud. I like to have that around minus 8, so turn that down a little bit. It's good, but yeah, about minus 8. And that's just a starting point for later, which I'll explain why, but it doesn't have to be bang on minus 8, but it's just a starting point. Cool. So next we're going to go into the bass line. And again, we're just going to match what the sub's doing. So we're just going to put in like 16th notes. Is this 16th? No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay. And you're using F2, and I noticed on your sub it was F1.
Yeah.
Does that matter? Because I've been using, maybe that's where my phasing is happening. I don't know, because I'm using F1 and then F1 as my sub, but I needed
The,
to go.
the fact that you use F1 or F0 doesn't really matter because it really depends on like the pitch of the oscillator. So for example, let's say I go back to the sub here and I solo it, even though I move this down to F0, if we open up span and I go
Mhm.
back into serum here, drag to the side, obviously when I was looking at it, I was like, oh no, it's up here. But like, so I
Mhm.
shifted all the notes down an octave, but that's just because it was quicker. But you could go into serum, and I can just lift or lower the octave on the sub oscillator, and it does the same
Mhm.
thing. So where you place the notes on like F1, F2, F0, it doesn't really matter. For example, the sub could be on F2 and I could just do -4 and it would be the same, or -3 and it'd be the same, right? So it
Okay, cool.
doesn't really matter which way you do it. It's just which way is quicker at the time. For me, it was just lowering it by an octave on the MIDI notes because I was there.
Hmm.
So yeah, it doesn't matter where you place it. It's kind of what I'm saying is it depends on where the oscillator is actually oscillating. Does that make sense?
Okay. Okay, cool. That's good to know. And then on the bass, actually, if the sub is turned on, so if you're in Surum, you have the sub turned on at -2, you wouldn't put a sub on that bass
No.
instrument. Okay,
No,
okay,
no, no.
gotcha.
So you could, if you wanted to be one big sound, you could. But the reason I separate them is because I want the sub to be as pure as possible. I also want it to be sidechained differently. I also want it to be processed differently. For example, I don't want to saturate the sub. I just want it to be a pure
Hmm.
sine wave. I don't want anything on it. So that's just the way I do it. I just separate it that way. I'm going to turn off all this processing here and just start with a basic patch. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'll build this from scratch. Yeah, I'll build this from scratch. Yeah, I'll build from scratch. I think that'll be more educational. Hang
Cool.
on. So I'll turn off all the processing, and then we're going to grab a serum patch. And I like to use these analog tables. There's like Model 10, for example. There's also Juno 106, which is like emulates like an analog style saw wave. But let's
Hmm.
go with the Model 10 today, which is a bit more of a curved sine wave. Sounds like that. So even though I put it on F2, I actually kind of want this lower, I think. Let's look at this. Yeah, I want it lower. So we have two options, right? We could either play it here, where it would start at 45 hertz for the fundamental, which is the same as where the sub is sitting. Sounds really dark. Or we can go an octave up, have something a bit more light and bubbly. I think light and bubbly might be a better vibe for now. So that's fine.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to turn the random all the way down as well. And I'm doing this because, do you know what the random does here, actually?
It makes it is it like the width and stuff too? Like it
No, no, that's
or
detune.
oh,
That's
detune.
unison.
Okay.
So,
Does that like make the phase go randomly? Is that
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
so okay. I kind of know what that is. But I know it's at like usually you turn it to zero, right? Or you turn it
What,
down to
well, I'll explain why, right? Instead of
yeah.
just saying like, yeah, always put it zero, let's actually talk about why you would want to mess with
Yes.
this, right? So if the random's on 100, you see these notes kind of always sort of change, they're always changing sort of shape because the way that, let me just also turn the release all the way down so that's not getting in the way either. You see how like they're always sort of slightly changing because the
Hmm.
oscillation is starting at a different place. It might start like high up, it might start low down, it might start on zero. So the phase is always starting on a different position. With zero, it will always start where this yellow bar is in the middle. And so it doesn't really matter where we put it for now. We'll just put it up there. But you can see now that the notes are like consistent in the same place.
Hmm.
So that's really good for us because that allows us to have more controlled low end. Allows us
Hmm.
to like phase a line later and stuff like that. And in this situation, I think it's more recommended. I would always recommend having like zero random on like the low part of the bass. But when you get to the mid-range sort of place of the bass, like you can start messing with random and having detune and make it all like messy and stuff like that because that gives it character. But for the fundamental, I want it to be strong, and that's why as well I'm not going to use more than one voice because I just want one strong voice. Because if I start bringing in like multiple voices, kind of takes away
Hmm.
that kind of takes away the focus of the middle. So we got that. Sounds good. Next thing I'm going to do is just shape this ADSR. So I'm probably going to do something like this. Maybe change this to 1/8. Fine. And then we're going to get this filter. I'm going to bring this down to like 80. I'm going to put the second envelope, put it on here. We go 1/8.
Cool, that sounds good.
Just making it really basic for now. I'm going to go too hard with it.
Hmm.
That as well. And then another thing I'm going to do is push Command G or Control G, and then I'll make a second make an instrument rack so I can have a second serum. I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to call this one the bass or fundamental layer, and this one I'm going
Hmm.
to call wide. So we're going to make a width layer. So what I'm going to do is go in here. I'm going to put the random, leave that on 0, but I just want to duplicate it so I have the same ADSR and filter. I'm going to go copy with mods. I'm going to paste it to the second one. I'm going to pan this one hard left and pan this one hard right. Then I'm going to grab macro, hold down Alt and Shift and click here. And it's going to change it from like omnidirectional to like linear directional. And then point this one all the way left. And then this one, I'm going to point all the way right. And then essentially what it's going to do, because they're pan, one's hard left, one's hard right, I'm going to start splitting the phase. So one's going to go in one direction, one's going to go in the other direction, but it's going to stay coherent. And what will happen is like this really tight width is going to come out of it, where like it's going to be phase coherent while still being really wide. You go above 50, it breaks, but
Hmm.
So if I go get like ozone imager real quick and just stick this on here, we can kind of see what's happening on the thingy here. Like it's really coherent. Like it doesn't move around. It's always in the same place. I can start
Cool.
messing with it a bit more. If we go over 50, it just collapses, which we don't want. But yeah, you can play around with that and just look at it. It's kind of nice.
Like a flower almost.
Yeah, like a butterfly. So you do something like that. And that gives our width layer. So what we can do next, we can grab a utility tool, put it on the width layer, go right click on the width and then go mid-side mode and just drag this all the way up. And now what it's going to do is going to remove all the mono. So now I only have side information. And this one, the top layer here, the fundamental is already mono. So essentially this is mono and this is stereo. So now I have like two completely separate signals. They'll never touch because one is only sides and one is only mono.
Cool.
And I have complete control over it. So that I could do some EQ on the width layer, for example. I could be like, okay, I don't want as much bass in it. Maybe I just want something like that. I can mix that in. See here, I've got like, so on span, for me, the gray is like the total stereo signal, and the red is like the side information. So what I'm looking for here is to not have any red go above the gray, because I don't want it to be wider than it is mono, because that would disbalance it. So I might just turn it down a little bit more. Perfect. And that's kind of what we would do for a very, very simple bass line, basically. Any questions about that so far?
No, this is so cool because I've been just using like some of the patches that are you like get the preset and then it's all set. And so there's no control of over the mono or the mid sides. You just have to kind of guess.
It
So
gets really
I like
real messy
this.
real quick.
Yes, very messy. So this is good to know that you're layering your base, but you're separating the two, which I totally didn't know that I could have done that. So this is good. Okay, wide and the
This is
mid, yeah, the mid
it's
side.
pretty elite ball knowledge, to be fair. Not many people do it this way, but it does get you super clean
Mhm.
low end. What was the
Yeah,
next
that's
thing?
sweet.
So if we look at span again and we look at like the sub here, see the sub's playing here at 45 and the bass line is playing here. Essentially now we have a bass and a sub that don't touch because the sub is just a pure sine wave playing here at 45 and the bass only plays at 90 hertz and above. There's nothing here. So when it plays together, there's no interference.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, then they're
There's a
not
little bit
gonna
of,
have.
yeah, there's like a little bit of like, I don't know, artifact coming down to the bottom. So what we can do is later when we've done saturating it is we can EQ that out. I actually wonder if it's worth EQing it out now, actually. So I might just grab an EQ. The thing about this though, it might cause phase. So, but I'm just going to experiment because usually I EQ after, but what if we EQ first and just get rid of that artifact at the bottom there? Seems fine. Okay, let's start saturating it. I'm going to start with Soundtoys Decapitator. Any saturated will do, but this is just one of my favorite. Use the A mode for even odd harmonics. And I like to just crank it as much as possible and then bring it back until it sounds more natural. So obviously that sounds fucked up. Don't want that. Unless you're trying to do some really rude boy ting. I don't know.
Yes.
I might bring some more top end into the synth actually and just grab put the thing again. Same here. And dry the blend the dry wet back in. That's good. Try raw as well, or yeah, let's go over raw.
Is there like a saturator on Ableton? Don't think I've used one before. Is there
So
one?
you
Oh, there is. Okay. Yeah.
just
I don't.
saturator, which has different modes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you should have raw as well. Raw is new, but it's fucking really good. I really like raw. We're gonna use raw here. It has like different modes. For example, you have single serial multi-band, so you can like apply different saturations of different bands.
Mm-hmm.
We can have serial, so you can have like it affect a blend of like this, then this. You can have parallel, so it's like you get them separate, almost like they're two channels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mid side, so you can actually apply saturation just to the sides and then just to the mono. Feedback mode, I'm not sure what this is. I think this is like you feed back this distortion back into the direct, which could be interesting. And then delay I've never used, to be honest. I don't know what that does. But we'll just go with single for now. We're just going to add a bit of tube preamp, I think. Just blend it back in. Always blend your dry wets to the desired taste. If you leave stuff at 100%, you kind of just like, you lose a lot of the fidelity, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the original sound gets lost if something's 100% wet, because that plugin, that effect is now just completely overriding any kind of original tone you had. Might be desired sometimes, but a lot of the time I like to have a bit of the original sound coming through just so we're not completely losing the fidelity. And that's good. Cool. Then when we've done saturation, we'll do a bit of EQ. A bit of compression. So with the compression, if I just turn this back off, first thing I want to do is I want to look at kind of the shape. So 16ths. 16ths. So it's already a pretty good shape. I don't think I want to compress it too much. It's already really controlled. But we might make it melodic later, which might introduce changes. So I'll just make sure we're controlling it a little bit. I'm going to do very light compression, like 1 or 2 dB, just to control the sound, not really to change too much. Too much relief. Which we level match it. I haven't really done much there in terms of actually changing the dynamics, but it's there for control later. Next, we're going to do some EQ. So I'm actually going to remove this. So you see here, we've like got some rumble here being added in because of the saturators. So I'm just going to remove that. And then some of these partials will be distributed weirdly because of the saturation as well. See the C4 note kind of sticking out. Sounds like that. So when I do this, I like to grab it, and then I like to just bring it back down to 0 and just hear, is it still a problem? So I bring it up to like hear what it sounds like, and then bring it back to 0 to be like, okay, is this still a problem here? And then maybe dip to see if it improves. So I can hear that humming, that kind of sound coming out of it. I'm just going to dip it a little bit. Okay. All right, then look for the next one. Do you have like Q3 or Q4, by the way?
I have Q4.
Okay, brilliant. So do you know about spectral grab?
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't. No, I don't.
So,
Yeah.
so this will help you a lot with EQing. So essentially what you do is you play the sound, you hover over it, the bit at the bottom, it turns purple, and it shows you where there's potentially like resonant partials, and then you can just like grab them.
Oh, yeah, I did not know that. That's good to know.
Yeah, it helps with your EQing a lot, save a lot of time. Like you hit before and after, it kind of removes that sound.
Oh, yeah, a lot more clean.
Easy peasy stuff, right? I mean, the limiter is just going to be like a catch, because later when we start doing like automation on the cutoff and stuff like that, we want to be able to like make sure we keep the volume consistent. So I'm just going to bring this down until it basically it's just like tapping the limiter. like that. We have the shaper box here. So how I like to do my side chain is, let me just think how I do this actually. I like to copy the shaper box onto the kick, like so. You have shaper box, don't you?
Yeah, just volume shaper, but I got it on Splice. So I'm gonna see if the cable guys people could upgrade me so that I could get the oscilloscope because I don't have one. So I think the oscilloscope is very helpful just to see the tails and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's good to know. And but I love it so far, but I think like just knowing how to cut the when like make my bass line and my kick stronger because I find like sometimes I'm guessing and that's not great because then the phasing happens and
Yeah.
I've noticed that and I think this process is going to help me understand where to look if there needs to be an adjustment, but I think the being able to cut the sides and the mono bass is going to be very helpful just to have that into parts.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So with the side chain with shaper
Mm.
box, I'll show you how I do this in a way that like you can't go wrong. So first of all, we're going to put the shaper box on the kick. And the reason we're doing this is we want to sort of mold it around the kick. So I'm going to put these at 24 dB for the splits. And then I'm just going to reset this so it's completely fresh. Solo the kick drum. Here's a little headphone icon. So this will solo the band that you were in. I'm going to open up the oscilloscope on the master so I can kind of see what's going on in terms of the shapes and stuff. And as I drag, if I select the middle band and I drag this, I start to remove the sub, right? Because obviously I'm filtering that out. And I want to get to a point where like I just have that little like punchy bit. So it's around,
Hmm.
for this particular kick, it's around 200, right? Let me just turn the loop a bit shorter. And then I want to select the high band. I just want to get the click. So on 2K for this particular kick. So now I've got this split up between like the sub of the kick, the punch of the kick, and the click of the kick.
Hmm.
And now what I can do, which is pretty cool, is I can take this shaper box here. I'm just going to delete the one that's already on here for the sake of education. So I've duplicated the, so I set up the bands on the shaper box on the kick. Now we're going to paste that so it has the same settings onto the bass. So now basically the bands are now set up in order to perfectly go around those different parts of the kick, right? So we can essentially now open the kick drum. This is going to be like a lot of stuff going on at once, but essentially, hang on, there's a plane going over.
Oh, all
There
good.
we go.
And yeah,
Um,
and it's on the master channel or so you have the one that's on the mat or the main so your oscilloscope is that on the master
yeah.
channel? Okay, good to know.
So
Okay.
yeah, so on the master, there's, if I scroll along here, there is the shaper box here, which is the master oscilloscope.
Hmm.
So this might be confusing, but essentially we've got a volume shaper on the kick, which is doing nothing but setting up the bands. I then have a volume shaper which is copied from the kick on the bass, which has the same setup, which we're now going to start doing volume shaping. And then I also have another shaper box which is doing the oscilloscope on the master. So yeah. First thing I got
You
to do
could see
though,
everything. That's good to
exactly.
know. Okay, cool. Okay, bass and
First thing I have to
mid.
do though, with Ableton specifically, you have to set the external instruments from, you have to use something, sorry, you have to use something called external instrument in order to send MIDI data from a signal. So I want to use the kicks MIDI data, which is here, and send that into the bassline's shaper box. So you have to go here, select bassline, and then select the shaper box. And then that way it can send MIDI information to it. Kind of long-winded, but this is the reason why it's already baked into my template, so I don't have to do that every single time, right? Because
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
kind of long. Anyways,
Cool.
so now that's done, just make sure, turn off reverse driver shape latency as well. We don't want that. I'm not really sure what it does, but I had a guy tell me once that like, yeah, it adds like problems with like latency, so make sure it's turned off. So cool. So now I can put this headphone icon back on. I can solo like the kick and the bass. Now I'm only looking now at like the sub portion of the kick and the bass. So I can see this is like the sub of the kick. And if I select the middles, I can see like this is like where the mid of the kick is and the mid of the bass and then the tops. And so now I can actually be like, okay, where am I going to sidechain it? And on the right here, I can see like the total sum, like the accumulation of what this looks like. So first thing we're going to do, set a point here. Now you hear if I put it right in the bottom left corner, it creates like a little click sound, and that's because you can't go from 1 to 0 instantly. It doesn't exist in real life. So we need to put a little curve like that, just sort of like 1 pixel to the right. Make another point where it's going to be kind of like where the kick kind of ends, which would be around here. And then probably another one like this. I might be a little bit lenient, let a little back in, just so that it has a little bit of a crossover. And then I'm just going to like bring this down like that, just a gray node, curve it in. You can see now, these are separate. Turn this off. Cool, and then we move on to the middle bands by selecting the headphone icon, make sure we're on these 2 middle bands now. And now we do the same thing again. So now we're only trying to sidechain around this little punch. Also, not just that, I might want to sidechain for flavor here and just have like a bit of a pump, a bit of a groove. So I might do something like this. So it has a bit more of that like feel, like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then we go to the top part. That's just where the click is happening. You can see something super short like that. Now, yeah, you can see it's like completely separated. So if I turn the bass off, this is what the kick looks like. There's no EQ on it anymore, and that's what it looks like. So I bring the bass in, it barely changes. It's like a little bit of a change to the oscillation, but there's no big volume spikes. There's nothing like messing with the phase. It looks completely coherent.
Cool.
And the same with the sub we did earlier.
And that's what it should look like around that, so that it's... Yeah. Okay, cool.
Essentially, the kick... The way the kick looks soloed, when you put the bass and the sub back in, the kick should look pretty much the same. You should be able to distinguish, like, that's the kick. I can see the kick there. So on the oscilloscope. So now if you put it all together, the sub and the bass, we have this, and you can see clearly where the kick is. Is out. Kick by itself, and then move it all together. Now, one important thing to do as well is just turn off the shaper box on the kick once you're done with it, because these crossover bands will change the phase. I'll show you that real quick so you know what it looks like. So that's without the shaper box. Then with it, you can see the phase of the kick changes. That's because EQ adds phase. Yeah, so just make sure you remove that or delete it. Yeah, just turn it off or delete it. And now we have our low end done. And we spent like quite a lot of time on that, and that's because it's the most important part in my opinion. But yeah, we're at that point now. So next thing we're going to do is just set this to like -14 as a starting point. And we're going to look at like what's coming out of the group. So I group my kick, bass, and sub all together in a group like this. Now we're going to master this stem essentially. This is really peculiar. I've never seen this before. So my kick drum is -8.02, but the group is minus, why is it doing that? It's -8.04. Oh wait, no, never mind. Wait, yeah, like the group's quieter than the kick drum summed. Never seen that before, but I'm guessing there's some sort of phasing happening with the kick and the bass where it's just turning it down slightly, but I'm not going to worry about that because it's literally like 0.02 decibels, so not a big deal.
Okay, cool.
Any questions so far?
No, that's all good. So, and then that group is usually -8-ish there. Yeah, okay, cool.
Cool. And that gives us plenty of head.
Good.
Cool. So then going on to like mastering the stem, essentially we want to hit -6. We're going to do 3 very basic things. We're going to compress, we're going to EQ, and then we're going to limit. So the first thing we do is turn on this compressor. I'm using C2 here. The first thing to note about this compressor is I have the sidechain here turned on, and even this isn't actually doing anything sidechaining. All it's doing is putting on an EQ onto the sidechain. Now, this isn't actually removing 50 hertz and below. What it's doing is it's telling the compressor, do not react to that part of the sound. So the threshold won't react to the big loud sub. It will react more to the body of the kick. Does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah.
And the reason for that is it allows us to go a bit deeper into the threshold before it starts reacting, which means we can get a tighter compression rather than it reacting to the super loud sub. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to like -6 decibels just so we can hit the mid range of the sound. So it allows us to get a bit more depth. And then we use very light settings here. I got it in bus mode if you have C2. If you don't, you can just use a glue compressor from Ableton that will also do the job. And the idea behind the settings here with the attack and release is we want the threshold to trigger off the kick, but then we want the attack to be high enough that it doesn't actually compress the kick. This way, the compressor sort of reacts to the kick, but then it starts compressing what's in between the kicks. And then the release has to be fast enough that it releases before the next kick. So you create this like groove, there's like pump between the kicks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like the won't won't kind of feel,
Yeah.
right? Because you need
Wop,
that,
wop,
yeah,
wop. Yeah.
yeah, to like keep it driving versus like the womp womp, right?
Yeah,
It's hard to
kinda.
explain. Yeah, so
It
yeah,
is. But you
like
understand it, so that's good.
hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rolling bass line, pretty much.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, this will work for any low end essentially. It's like you set the threshold to react to the kick, but then the attack's high enough to ignore the kick, so it grabs everything in between. Standard house and techno, right? Doesn't work the same for drum and bass and stuff like that because obviously that the kicks are different patterns. It works differently. But for house and techno, this will just work like out the box. So you can see here on the visual, like you see this is where the kick is, and then the bass line's like below it. So obviously we're targeting just sort of like where the kick is here. So we have about 1 or 2 decibels of gain reduction. Something like that, right? And then we can look at the oscilloscope and we can see kind of like what's happening with the transient. And so this is where the attack comes in. See, if I put the attack all the way down, the beginning of the kick's been squashed. We don't want this. We want the kick to pass through. So we're going to pull this up until the kick passes through. Like so. So maybe around 35 milliseconds. And now the kick has that presence at the top. And then the release, we can look at this red line and just make sure that it's resetting back to 0 before the next kick. Because if the release is too high, when we play it, the first kick will be fine, but then the second kick will be just like overly compressed. I put this to like 2 bars or 1 bar. Visually, it's not really making a difference, but we will just take my word for it. That's like what can happen. So about 80 milliseconds here. And then we're going to look at the levels here. So they got about 1.3 gain reduction, which is great. And the levels here, we came in at -8, we're coming out at 8.1. This is already boosted by 1, so I'm just going to add an extra 0.1 onto it. Another level again. So we're coming in -8, we're going out -8. And now if I quickly just turn the compressor on and off, we can see visually what the difference might look like. Kind of interesting, right? So we've redistributed a lot of that energy to the front of the kick because of the way we set the attack up. Now the kick has like more punch on the front end, and the bass line has that like groove, like wop, 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 wop to it.
Yeah, the oscilloscope is so much easier to see everything. And yeah, because I think I had span, and that's where I was like with the frequencies. And then I was like, yeah, like this is way better to see, to have the oscilloscope. It's like
Percent.
game changer here. I
Yep.
should
Yeah,
have gone
absolutely.
way back. Okay, good to
When I
know.
started,
And this is helpful, very helpful.
awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, so when I started using visual tools, that's when my mixing just literally just kept doubling in skill because I was like, I could start identifying all the issues. And then everything people were telling me about like, oh, you need to do this. it wasn't just like, okay, I did it, but I don't hear the difference because my ears weren't trained or I didn't have an expensive studio or whatever. But with the visual tools, you don't need that. You can actually see visually what's happening. And then you can even compare it to a reference track, right? So I can look at the subs for the reference track, for example, look at mine and kind of compare them. And we can start like making distinctions, right? Like what's going on the reference track and what's going on mine, and how do I get my waveform looking the same? And then you can come up with creative solutions for that, right? And
Oh,
so,
awesome.
yeah, it was able to like use those visual tools on top of reference tracks that really helped me get to that next level, and
Cool.
and I'll have like a way to educate myself essentially. But yeah, moving on. So we've done the compression. Do you know what a pull tech is? It's a type of EQ.
It's a very famous EQ, but I don't know much about it. But I know that a lot of expensive studios have it.
Cool.
And that's all I know. So,
I'll send you a video later about like the history of it, but essentially, oh sorry, there's a plane going over again. So I live near the airport now, which is kind of bad, but whatever. It's not too
oh,
loud, but
okay.
anyway, so we're going to use these three knobs here. So CPS is cycles per second. It's essentially hertz. And I have this all set up in a rack anyway. So you can see I can move this, I can move the boost, and I can move the attenuation. The CPS, we want to target the key that we're in. So we're in F. I know F is like 48 hertz. So I'm going to target 45 as the closest to 48. If you don't know the hertz of your key, you can just grab Q4. And you see the little piano down here, you can sort of drag along until you see it, right? So F is actually 43, not 48. I was wrong, but still pretty close. Still going to be 45 for the CPS. But that way you can find the hertz of the key you're in, and then
Cool.
essentially just set the CPS. And by the way, pull tech, so that there are paid ones, but there are free ones as well. This one is free. I can't remember where I got it, but there's a few free ones online you can grab. And they all work essentially the same way. Okay,
Cool.
so what's so cool about the pull tech is you can boost and attenuate is essentially cutting at the same hertz. So I'm going to boost and cut at 45, which is like, okay, well, what's the fucking point of doing that? Surely you're just not doing anything then. But you can see my paint, right?
Hmm.
I'll explain this, how it works. So imagine this is like an EQ graph, right? And we're going to say this is what like neutral curve looks like, or no curve at all. And then if we grab the pull tech, essentially how it works is, let's say 45 is here. Let me use a different color. Like 45 hertz is here. When we use the pull tech and we boost and we attenuate at the same time, it kind of does this. It's kind of interesting how it works. So it kind of boosts just before the 45 and then attenuates just after the 45. And then it has a really interesting like algorithm to do the curvature. And so you can emulate this with an EQ, right? But it's like, as you turn the knobs, like the curvature like dynamically changes. So it's very musical. And essentially what this allows us to do is like boost the subs, but then at the same time, like reduce the mud. So it's quite cool. It's very musical. That's why people love the pull tech. And it's just, yeah, been a God's gift, I suppose. This makes
Cool.
sense.
Yeah, I did not know that. So it is like almost boosting, but then it's cutting at 45, so that allows more of the um other frequencies in your mix to kind of like it
Yeah.
carves it out almost, right?
Exactly. But it does it in a very musical way. So the subs are going to get nice and round, and then the mud's going to be cut out a little bit. So then there's more space for the mid range. So we'll do that now. The way we do this, we have a limiter set up, which is set at -6. So -6 is going to be like the hard ceiling of like where I want this stem to be mastered. I'm going to boost into it first of all, and I'm going to aim for about 2 decibels of gain reduction. So let's just do that now. So around that 38, which is like a 3 here on the boost. And now I want to attenuate it until I'm basically just getting the least amount of gain reduction on the limiter, but still tapping it very slightly. There we go. I'm just tapping it a tiny little bit. And now we have like essentially a -6 dB stem, which is now
Cool.
basically mastered. So then if we look at the low end, nice and juiced.
Sweet. Yeah,
Honestly,
you could really see it.
yeah, and honestly, I'd probably spend more time sound designing that bass line. I just wanted a basic sound for now, but the principle's the same. But flavor it with like different saturations and distortions and stuff until it sounded a bit more full. But we don't just have to spend loads of time on that. And then one other thing I want to point out is really important before we get into the fun stuff is on my master, I have a clipper at the beginning, and this is
Hmm.
boosting by 6 dB. So the way this is working, because this stem we've just mastered for the low end is -6. If we boost
Hmm.
by 6, we're now at 0 dB, right?
Hmm. So that's the
That means,
ceiling.
yeah, so now essentially we're mastered. We're at 0 dB. Now, when we bounce between our track and the reference track, the low ends are going to be matched, right? The volume's going to be matched. So I'm not, I have no point of failure anymore. It's like if I want to say, okay, how loud's the snare in the reference track? We're at the same volume, so I know I just have to mix it to the same standard. I don't have to be like, oh, well, it's mastered and mine isn't, so maybe I have to turn it down to match it. I don't have to do that now. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. And then you set up your hotkeys to switch from your reference to like
Yeah.
your mix, right? Okay.
Absolutely. That's baked into the reference, into the template as well. So I use Shift X. You can see here it just solos the reference track and then pushing it
All
again
right.
on solos it. Not only that though, but also when I push Shift X, it also turns off the clipper because I don't want to boost the reference track by 6 dB, right?
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that also is getting turned off.
Cool. I have standard clip.
Oh, go
I
on.
have standard clip, and I think that's the same as the clipper that you have. So the standard clip is just like another plugin that does the same thing. It is a clipper, but maybe I'll get this one because it's easier to read.
Yeah. This
Hmm.
is Black, is it, I guess Black Swan Audio, BSA, Black Swan Audio, I think it's what it's called.
BSA. Okay, cool.
But any hard clipper will do. Make sure it's a hard clipper, not a soft clipper.
Or
But this
clipper.
one's nice and transparent. And the second reason we actually use a clipper and not a limiter for this is when you go over the threshold, like you start distorting with the clipper, that distortion works like a canary in a coal mine situation where like, let's say you're trying to mix and you start to hear a lot of distortion, you know there's some sort of summing issue between two sounds that's pushing you over the threshold. So maybe like if the kick and the bass are not properly sidechained, it might cause like a spike in volume, right? Because of the phase.
Mm.
And if you hear that distortion, you'll be like, oh, it sounds really distorted. Maybe there's a problem somewhere that I need to like EQ or sidechain or separate two sounds because there's a problem. And so we use that now like a indicator of like there's a problem, if that makes sense.
Mm. Okay, cool.
All right, excellent. So we're an hour in already, and we haven't really started anything other than low end, but we'll keep going. Now comes the fun part where we just start fucking jamming ideas out. But that's like the most important part is like getting the low end right. Usually that would take me like 15 minutes because it's already all set up. But I wanted to explain as I went along. But now we'll start blasting out some samples, right? So the next thing I like to do is my drums. I'm actually going to, we've still got melodic techno selected as our genre. I'm just going to go to like find some hi-hats.
And I could do
Actually,
like peak time techno, that works too.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Whatever works, whatever is like available as a filter on Splice, basically. Or where you don't have to use Splice as well. You might already have a bunch of samples from a peak time techno pack that you might want to use, so that's fine too. I just like to use Splice.
Hmm.
I like that one for a different thing, so I'm just gonna open up another MIDI channel, like that in there. Voila.
You're so quick at this. This is good to like just see the process because sometimes like I'm on YouTube and then I'm looking at the process and they're like just yeah, like on a different page they don't explain it or they're already switching and no, this is very, very helpful just to see how you do it because um I like to start with my kick and bass line too just to get that foundation. And then it's then putting in my top drums and the hats and shakers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, got the same sort of workflow. Tell me if I'm going too fast, though. Do you want to just start blasting, or should I stop
Yeah, go
explaining stuff?
ahead.
Or?
Yeah, no, no, you could totally just do the thing. And then if I have questions, like I could just ask or, yeah.
Cool. Start blasting then. So I'm going to get an offbeat hi hat. That's a bit too like lo-fi house if I do that. Try another pattern. This with a bit more velocity. Okay. Oh no, what have I done? I'm going to just look at the oscilloscope here, kind of compare it with the kick drum, because I can anchor with the kick drum. And also, like, for example, I can also look at the high band of the reference track, like so. No hats there. Kind of with the hats hitting there, -6, so let's go back to the hat can be a bit louder as well. Then we can look at some, get like a shaker loop or something. I don't think too hard. I just sort of like throw stuff together.
And you're going off by sound, like how they're sounding together, right?
Yeah, exactly. How they vibe together, how I feel about it. If I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Like for me, it's just also it's all very much felt experience at this point. It's just like, yeah, that feels good, and that's something you just tune in over time, right? What we do always do as well. Since now the offbeat hat is anchored because I got it to the same level as the reference track, I can like look at like where the other ones are sitting. Just be like, okay, well maybe I can do this. Maybe it's a bit louder. Maybe turn the shaker on. So I notice when I turn the shaker on, the offbeat hat gets really loud. I'm like, okay, so what I might do in this situation, just grab a side chain and we'll just sidechain that to the offbeat hat just so it doesn't have that problem. Or another thing we could actually do before I do, I'll just put it on right now. Where is it? There it is. Another thing we could do as well is we call this shaker. I call this like, oh my God. How did I do that? I hotkeyed wrong. Anyway, hats 2. So looking at this, we know that like the offbeat hat's getting louder when they both play together. So I can maybe use the track delays here, push the offbeat hat like 4 milliseconds back, push the shaker forward 4 milliseconds. See if that solves the issue. All of that, right? See, it's like yeah. Not the best. Yeah, I don't want to move it too much, actually. It doesn't sound great either, so I'm just going to sidechain it. And now, see, that's not causing the volume spike. So the more you reduce these little volume spikes, the more you can actually push sounds to be louder, and that's how you get like a really loud mix.
Oh, gotcha.
You're separating those sounds, right? You're pushing them out of the way of each other, so you get more separation. It's going to sound louder.
So it's not as muddy. Like I find like sometimes I'm just guessing and then it's just like a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it just all builds up and you're like, where did I go wrong? And it's just like, there's all these little things that just summing on top of each other. And so it's by
Hmm.
being able to like meticulously just say, okay, you sit here, you sit there, you sit there. Like you got a bunch of kids running around in a fucking school, and you're like, okay, you sit over here, you fucking come, you just put them all in little
Hmm.
pockets. But what else?
Cool.
Some reverb as
Good.
well. So on my template, I have a bunch of reverb set up by going from like smallest to largest, and yeah, just like to sprinkle that in. Might actually just put it on the hat group. Might make my life a little bit easier. So going to try maybe panning this. Got the EQ saying as well. Yeah, we don't need all that. That should already have something in there. Another thing about the template as well is like having the EQ and the utility just already on every single channel, just so it's there to go. Another thing with the template as well is inside these like simplers, they have randomization set up inside the simpler. So every sample is essentially getting shuffled very slightly in terms of volume, pitch, and panning. And that just makes it so it doesn't feel as static. You can't really hear it. It's very subtle, but it just makes it so it just hits slightly different every time, which is more humanized, right? So that's built in as well to every single simpler that's on the template.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah. Because I had used the Ableton's Groove and it just sounds awful sometimes. Like they have like
Yeah, it does.
Groove Shuffle or Soca and like, oh, you're like, no, thank you. But that's good to know. Okay, cool.
I
Awesome.
don't really use it that much. I make techno a lot, so I don't use the groove pools a lot. If I made like tech house, I might.
Mhm.
For drums for now. Let's get some synths going. Collapse all this. Open up the mid-range group, and here I just have a bunch of serums. So I don't know. Maybe we'll start with like some kind of cheeky pattern or something. Cool. I might not end up using this. It's just like I like to get the scaffolding going and just see what comes out. Ugh. So when it comes to doing sound design, if I want something in the background, I'll usually blur it out with detune. Because I said before with the bass line, like one voice, just keep it super clear in the middle. But if I want something that's more going to be like wavy and not really taking up much space, I'll just detune it. Put an LFO on that actually. Play around with that. units inside of it. If something doesn't like working with pretty quick, I just move on. I like the sound. It kind of gives me like a trancey feel, so I'm going with it. Put some reverb on it. It's really nice just having the reverb on the returns. You just fucking slap it on. Portal here, this is just basically, I use it for delay. It's got some really creative delays. You don't have to have this. I'm just going to use it. But yeah. Bit of reverb in the bass as well. Another good thing about having the bass and the sub separated is I can reverb the bass without reverbing the sub. More atmosphere.
That sounds great.
Appreciate it. Any questions so far?
Oh, do I need the pancake? That one, yes.
No, you can actually just use AutoPan inside. It's called AutoPan Tremolo now inside of Ableton, but it'll do the same thing. But this is free. This is free to download as well. It's from Cable Guys who do Shaperbox, so this is free to download.
Cool.
You just,
Yeah, sounds better. Cable Guys.
It's a lot more. I like the visual of it. Also, like you can make your own fucking shapes of it and stuff, which is really cool. So you could do really weird panning if you wanted to.
Cool,
Yeah.
just to kind of get that sound design that's like, okay, I want maybe like a big room vibe with like the synths going left and right or something, right? So
Exactly. It's really nice. I like a lot of stereo imaging stuff. Panning around is really cool.
because you don't need another instrument if you have that width and that largeness, right?
Yeah,
Because sometimes
exactly.
like some people look for like another synth line, and I think I've been doing that is just looking for synth lines to stack on top of it, and then it gets very messy, and then there's too many instruments going on. So this is very helpful to know that
Yes.
you're using one and then sound designing it to make it wider or to your taste. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a big part of what separates pros and amateurs is like they'll produce something and they'll be like, this doesn't sound like it's finished. It doesn't sound full. And so they'll go add more layers and it just becomes cluttered and a mess. When actually you just need to like focus on just making the sounds that you do have bigger and fuller. It's like you don't need a lot, right? Like a lot of the time you'll hear on like Afterlife tracks or drum code tracks, it's just like one massive lead synth. And it's just like, and little ear candies in between. But yeah, let's keep moving.
Cool.
Don't care or something. Let's try. Where's the Model 10? There it is. And I'm gonna make like a bass sound here, I think. Actually, before I do that, move this down. I'm gonna grab a second oscillator, make this one sine wave, and then with that I can change the FM. So this is muted. This sine wave's not going to do anything. But do you know what FM synthesis is?
Not really. I think I've heard of it, but uh yeah, I'm not sure. Is there, what would you say it is?
Black magic is what it is.
Okay,
No one.
cool.
Yeah, it creates sidebands. So if you have like a fundamental, let's say 100 hertz, and then you FM it, it splits off like diff new partials around around the partial. So if you have one at 100, you create two new bands at like 99 and 101, and the more you turn it up, the more those side bands get split. But after a certain point, the side bands will collide with the side bands coming off the other partials, and then all of a sudden it's just fucking chaos. But
Interesting.
yeah, it's really weird, and I'll send you a video on it if you want to learn the science behind it. But all you need to know is just like a little bit is all you need, and it ends up giving like more harsh, like metallic-y sounds. Another thing
Okay.
we can do as well is if we right click on the oscillator, we change to
Hmm.
ratio mode. This way, instead of like going up in pitches, we're just like saying full speed, half speed, quarter speed. This kind of sound, and then I'll start playing with the filter. Yeah, we get kind of like donkey sound.
Mm.
Then once I've got that set up, I'm going to copy mods, paste it here, and then I'm going to make the detuned layer on top. Use like an even number so it's split. Blend that in. Therefore, phone octave lower. A bit better. Hyper dimension. Let's stick a hard clipper on here. So there's a hard clipper actually built in. Let's do that one. I like how it sounds actually. Move from there. Let's put some reverb on it.
That's like, yeah, that is very like full. And I'm like, how did you do that? Because that's the sound sometimes I want, like the ba 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 ba, that. And you could just do it like there, just in your own yeah, doing the double, duplicating the oscillator, and then yeah, the FM is very cool. Yeah, this is stuff that I don't do, so this is helpful to know that I can do this.
It's like you see how simple it is. Like there isn't like loads of modulation, loads of LFOs. There isn't like much going on. It's like one effect on it, and
Hmm.
yeah, it really is. Like when you understand like how simple a lot of these sounds are, it's just saw waves and sometimes some FM. A lot of the time, it's the ADSR you need to get right because it's it fitting into the groove that makes it feel good, right? You can have a really basic sound that fits into the groove, and it's just so rewarding. Like it doesn't matter. Like, but a bit more release,
Hmm.
I think, on this. We definitely need more. This in mono voice, it is. Okay, good. Gonna call it echo, to like a delay. I'm gonna put it into a rack and put it its own channel, just so we have like the dry and the wet split. And I can do something like this. So I've got like the echo by itself here, 100% wet, and then the dry
Hmm.
by itself. And then we can add some ducking. Ducking is essentially side chaining, so it's not affecting the original sound. And then I might want to add some saturation just to like sort of level this out a bit.
Cool.
Putting up some layers. Just have fun, right? That's the kind
Yes,
of music.
yeah, yeah. I'm very excited to like do some homework after this.
For sure. Awesome. I'm glad it's getting value out of it. For sure. That's good.
Yes. Is this like the first time that someone has asked you to just go through like how you would create your song?
Oh. I was on hundreds of these.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. But yeah,
It's
when
actually quite a requested thing, believe it or not. Yeah, it's like quite funny.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because, like, you don't, like, in YouTube tutorials, like, I learned this, like, online, and it's like the steps, and, like, sometimes they jump, and some people's steps are not where I'd want to start. And so, like, this is, like, cool, like, how you're thinking of it, like, your plucks and then your donks, and you're working your way down versus, like, immediately going like across, like doing your drums and then putting them all through the song. You're just gonna like you're making it like these 16, is that 16 bars or 8 bars? 16
8
bars
bars.
and 8
Oh, I think it's 8
bars.
bars at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 bars, and then you're just kind of doing your sound design all into like making this portion sound where you want it to be right now. Yeah, so that you're not wasting
Brilliant.
time dragging your drums out. And that's how I learned was like drag all your drums out, then do your synth lines out. And like, yeah, this is helpful very much so.
Wait till we get to the effects. The effects really help a lot, like glue it together
Okay.
as well. Because I remember that demo you sent me was missing a lot of those ear candies and effects. So we'll go into that
Mhm.
in a bit. I'll just see what more synths I can fit in. If I want to do that, that kind of copies the bass line. I don't know if that's that cool. Going slower in the back. Polyrhythm, but maybe we do this. And on this as well, pretty sporadic. So I can hear like it's jumping in volume a lot. And so we can look at the oscilloscope to confirm this as well. Yeah, so some of these notes get like loud, and I don't want them jumping out too much. I want it a little bit of control, so I'm just going to get some compression here. Maybe start like a 2.5 ratio or something. Come on. So much. I think it's the polyroom kind of throws me off, so I'm going to try maybe just having it less frequent. And the panning can be a lot more cohesive as well. Just in the middle. That's a beautiful thing about this as well. I can just move the pan.
Oh, cool.
Left front. Maybe we put one. We just select all and do this, then bring the velocity down all of them. Maybe this one like super short. Just turn it off for now, move something else. Just trying to see if a melody comes to my head. huge fan of it. An idea though, but we'll move on. Do some effects now. So we do the effects. We'll turn the mids off for now, just so they're not distracting. I'll go with splice. The key with effects is knowing what they're called. So take this loop off. So exhaust or downer is kind of like going to be like tss sounds.
Oh.
Please drag that one in. And usually I like to have a 16 bar worth of effects for the main section, right? So we're actually going to duplicate these. That should be our first one. And on this effect group, I have a sidechain already baked onto it, just so like all the effects are like sidechain for the kick.
Cool.
Cool sound. Do I want that? Maybe I want that. Maybe we can have that later.
Very
in the song or
dramatic,
something.
yes.
Yeah. Well, that's also pretty cool. Let's see if we can fit that in somewhere. There are a lot of effects. It's got this really weird thing. We'll just put it in to see what this sounds like. Very anima. And by the way, the effects group is already like got reverb sent to it, just on the group as a whole. I like to just slaver it in. Slaver? Is that the right word? Slab it on.
Sliver or slap?
No.
Like sliver?
Slaver. That's like slaver. That's what I'm looking for.
Like slather the jam.
Yeah, exactly. Just slaver. So I just slaver my effects group with reverb, just so it's like, yeah.
Okay.
No, I think this is tuned to C. It is. I believe C is inside of F. Let me just check. I've got two EQs here now. Hang on, I'm doing this the wrong way. Look at here. C, yeah, C is the fifth of F. Fine. Just leave it then. It's fine. Don't need to tune it. Impact's a good word for stuff like this as well. Pretty good. I don't overthink it too much. It's like, oh, that sounds cool. Just put it in. I like to do my little curves though. We have like riser. That's probably a common one. Simple. We put it here at the end.
Sweet, like ear candy.
This is all the effects, and they're kind of little bits that fit like between the sounds of the track and stuff. So we could look at the fills, like a little drum fill. So what kind of fills them out? Some random. I've heard all these before. Let's try with this one. Okay, see what it sounds like in the mix. Do a bit of automation on this bass line so it's not stale. Set this up. So I'm going to grab a macro, just chuck it on the cutoff. We'll just do 50% for now. And then with this one, we're also going to chuck a macro on the cutoff. I'll do that at 50% as well. And then I didn't set the configure. Okay. I can configure super mat to macro. Which put it back like that. Fade out. So I have this rack here. This is also on the template. It like can do low cut, high cut, gain cut, reverb, fade in, fade out, and stereo cut. Just really versatile Swift Army knife kind of automation. So for example, just cut the lows. Whoops. Just makes life so much easier. But I have this one here called fade out, which is like kind of like a filter and a reverb built into one.
Cool.
Yeah, really handy for transitions and stuff. Just having like one sweep actually.
Cool.
Some more risers. What I'm kind of doing here is just like building the momentum of this 8-bar. Because all the effects now kind of like make sense, right? You've got the fill at the end, you've got the riser and so on. And it kind of feels like it's got momentum and energy. what vocal we can find. Got on random, just hope for the best. This is very hit and
Hmm.
miss with Splice.
Too high, no ocean. Techno, I sing with some echo. Techno, I sit with some echo. Techno. All the things you saw.
Drag this one and see. I heard something cool inside there. I could cut up. It's fucking long though.
Hmm.
What is that, like 2.5
It's a
minutes?
very long vocal.
Yeah, hopefully it loads. Sometimes Splice just gives up.
Hmm.
Any questions so far?
No, no. So do you recommend if I were to do vocals, it's easier because like sometimes labels like they might not want you to use a splice sample? Is that or do labels usually have the problem? Because I think sometimes they don't want like the same track with the same
Yeah,
vocal on it, right?
some are like that. Yeah, some don't care. For example, John Summit, when he got big, he had that track that was "Down in the Deep End." Was it that
Mm-hmm.
one? And he just took that off Splice, and people had already released tracks with that vocal, and he just did a different version of it and got signed to Defect. It didn't really change much about the vocal.
Oh.
But honestly, like you can just mess with the vocal as well. You can just say chop it up, and put effects on it and stuff like that. I do that a lot, so then no one knows, right? That's not loading,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
That shit like time and sand. Oh, don't want. No one stronger. I'm fighting, standing, fighting. In the unknown, visionary dreams, minds has flown. Welcome, my enemy, connect. My mind is racing on and on, on and on.
Vocals. What's that? What's that? The fuck is that? Something I made earlier, apparently.
Oh.
Putting out the 8-bar simps, basically.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I would be doing a lot more post processing, but not right now. Generally, I like to like get the like because obviously I've sound designed it to a point where it's like, yeah, this you get the idea, you know what's going on. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
cool, but once I've actually got the arrangement finished, and I come back to it. I spend a lot more time like saturating and EQing it, compressing it, getting the sound like way more high def. But I'm not. I don't
Cool.
want to focus on that now because if I focus on that now, I'm just going to go down a rabbit hole for an hour just tweaking one sound. Then the track's not going
Mm-hmm.
to get finished, right? So that's
Right,
an important
right.
distinction to make.
Cool.
Sounds like this. Diodes are pretty good distortions. Followed by a hard clip. The noise is a bit loud. See? Oh, I like 60. Building out the build section. We need these. I don't think so. Do a bit of this. Same with this, do a little bit of that. Need some like cool synth to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so sometimes I like to just skip the sound design completely and just create the sequence I want, and then see if that sequence makes sense before doing anything else. Oh, that maybe boom, 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 boom. duplicate that across. Then would this happen again? Maybe, probably. This would happen again. Be anima and do some pitch bending. It's happened a bit too soon. Teeny tiny pitch bend. Maybe not. Needs something, I think, here for sure. Got a gap there at the end. Would like to get like a vocal one shot in here if possible. Give it a bit of edginess.
Dreams.
Oh no!
It's a revolution.
Stutter or something. A stutter vocal.
Just take a vocal and stutter. I think this
Yeah.
one has a bit of something. What we can do, sample offline. Excuse me. What do you mean, bro? That's very annoying. It won't die. Oh, okay, right. Okay, never mind. What we can do is actually just like stretch it. Maybe not that like that though. Tool Resonator is really a really cool tool. That if you've ever used this before, you can tune this to like F.
Cool.
There's like a little altar boy as well. Maybe we can make some weird tones out of it. Oh, sounds bad. If we bounce that in place, here we go, beats, put it in 16th for this. Maybe that again. Well, maybe not bounce that again. Stretch that.
That sounds cool.
Interesting, right? So that's what I mean. You can just take anything and just sort of fuck with it and just see what comes out. We can go even further. We can grab like a portal. Portal likes to mess things up. So let's give it a go. What did I just have selected before? I can't remember. Late speech, I think it was. That's all right. And we can probably pan that around as well. Why not? Work on this first sound here for the drop. Like a really nasty. I'm actually going to put. I'm going to put Decapitator on first, just because I know I want to work into the punish mode. Big food for sound.
Oh, we're almost out of time.
Okay, we can go over a little bit. You got stuff to do or?
Oh no, this is like if you are okay with going over a little bit, like this is so helpful because I'm like sometimes I get stuck and then I was like, okay, this method is just like working your way down, just having the ideas out and then sound designing. I find like yeah, that really is helpful.
100%.
And then
There's a saying called "write drunk, edit sober." So in the beginning, you're sort of just saying "fuck it" to everything, saying yes to everything, like, yes, just doing whatever. And it's the same with the arrangement. I'm just like fuck it, I'll just make a build, fuck it, I'll make a drop, whatever. I don't know, I'll just put something here, and then by the end of it, you'll have like a 3-4 minute thing. You're like, okay, what did we actually make today? And sometimes it will take like 2 to 5 hours for me to do this. Obviously, I've been explaining as I'm going along, so it's taking a bit longer, but you get to the point where you're like, okay, I got something. Is this worth finishing? Right, maybe I'll send it to a few mates. Go like, what do you think of this demo? And they'll be like, or be like, whoa, dude, this is sick. And then, yeah, the ones that are like, people are like, fuck, this is sick. That's the ones I finish. Otherwise, just, yeah. If someone says, hey, this is good, I'll be like, okay, in the bin it goes.
Oh, okay. So do you just go like a verse and then a break and then your drop and then you're like you send that to the label as like not finished as like a full track, or do you do like the whole intro, beginning, like
What I'll send to the
drop?
what I send to the label is like 95% done. Like it's had a first. It's like a fully arranged intro to outro, got everything, all the elements in it. It's been mixed. Maybe it's not been super polished. Like there's a few tweaks, but I'll get to the point where it's pretty much good. It depends as well the relationship I have with the A&R. Sometimes I've known them a long time. I can just send them like a fucking janky ass fucking track, and I'm like, okay, I see what you're going for. But if it's a new label, I wouldn't do that. I just send something that's more polished. But yeah, so generally, like I said, I get to like this end of a 2 to 5 hour session, make a demo, and then I would sleep on it, come back to it, listen to it fresh air, see if it's any good, maybe send it to a few friends, see what they think. And then, yeah, and then you can do that every day essentially for like a month, and then you have 30 demos. That's kind of what I would do like once every 6 months or something, right? Just make a whole
Nice.
bunch of tracks. And then, yeah, let's see what happens there, and then just see what the best ones are. So I think in December I did like 32 tracks, and I think only 6 to 7 of them are going to get released. And those will
Wow.
all be like solo projects. In between that, people will send me stuff to work, like collaborate on, or remixes or stuff like that. So those happen more ad hoc, but once you build your career, that happens. And so I'll end up releasing like 20 tracks in a year because of like the workflow, essentially. That's kind of
Nice.
yeah, it's kind of what you want to build
Cool.
up to. Anyway,
Cool.
should we Should we continue with the sound design?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is cool.
Awesome. Making it as nasty as possible. Maybe we have like a little thing here. Maybe. See, this is a trick I can show you as well with auto pan. So I would do this with the LFO built in, but I'm a bit like, it might be easier to do it this way. But if you take like the panning, put it in sync, we're gonna put it to like 16. I did this on another track recently actually as well, so that's probably why I'm doing it again. Take the phase all the way down so there's only one string. Put it in saw mode, and then when we automate this, makes it like choppy.
Very cool. That is sweet.
We have this like drop that does this now. I like how it's kind of subdued a little bit.
It's almost like this haunting. I feel like this would be a good Halloween track. Like kind of that spooky, yeah, like I'm feeling it. It's very themed, kind of like the Stranger Things kind of, but also like melodic dark vibes to it.
Like all my tracks are just fucking dark and scary. That's like kind of like what I'm going for a lot of times. Like, how do I make people scared when I make music? But I want them to be like, fucking hell, that synth is fucking crazy. But I want to be like
you feel it.
bit scared.
Yeah.
I'm not really into the floaty stuff. I like to scare people, but I'm gonna keep fucking with this synth anyway. We have like a really long release on it. Maybe we do go for like quite a long release, but just curve it down. Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. And then see what we've got for dimension. Soften might help. What distortions we got? I don't know if we need any distortion because we're already pushing it into the punish. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Mate, Ali would really like this sound. He likes high peak time techno as well.
Nice.
Another guy I'm teaching. He fucking loves all these crazy sounds.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm just trying to make the sound a bit more consistent because we take the compression off. We look at like the volume changes. Like it's quite super diverse and dynamic range, but it's a little bit. So I'm just going to tighten up a little bit because with this sound, you just want it to be like full. I just pounding the speaker like full volume for as long as it can before it tails off, just so it's like in your face. Because yeah, techno, why not? Be like quite a high ratio. For sure. without the compression. You get this big spike in volume here, right? And it's like, okay, that's cool, but like that means the drop here is going to be weak. It's not going to be as loud. And now if the volume is controlled, I can just fucking slam up the volume like this. Maybe not that much. Scary stuff. Like, go on.
Yeah, that was so cool. Like, it was like building your own drop that's intense, but all your own sound design and knowing what you're manipulating is the thing, is like knowing where to, um, like the panning or like distortion. And yeah, that's cool. Like, I don't work like this, so this is an interesting like method because like sometimes they teach you to use a preset and then change the parameters, and then you're not sure of what you're changing because you're not building it. So this is very
Yeah.
helpful.